Family Guy has always proudly worn the badge of being an equal opportunity offender. For over 2 decades, the writers have made a living by pushing the envelope, testing the FCC, and crossing lines that other animated shows wouldn't dare touch.
This is an epidemic, and it must be contained.
Well, Mr. FCC, you can stop PTV, but you can never stop people from being who they are.
But sometimes, pushing the envelope goes just a little too far, and the resulting episodes end up alienating fans, sparking massive real-world backlash, or simply aging horribly. Today, we are breaking down worst Family Guy episodes of all time. Let's start the show. Kicking off our list of the worst, most poorly aged Family Guy episodes is Season 8, Episode 12, ExtraLarge Medium. What happens when Chris finally works up the courage to ask out a girl at school? Well, the show relies heavily on dated stereotypes and ends up sparking a massive real-life media feud with a famous politician. Let's break it down. The storyline kicks off when Chris and Stewie get lost in the woods during a family hiking trip.
A butterfly. Let's get it!
Chris, I don't think we should be leaving the trail.
Thinking they might not survive, Chris confesses that if they make it out, he is finally going to ask out a classmate named Ellen.
If we get back home alive, I'm gonna finally open up to Ellen from my math class and tell her how much I like her.
Luckily, they are rescued, and Stewie holds Chris to his promise. When Chris introduces Ellen, Stewie is a bit surprised to see that she has Down syndrome.
Wait a minute, that's the girl?
Yeah, isn't she special?
Despite this, Chris is totally smitten, and Stewie helps him get ready for the big night with a highly questionable musical number. But when the actual date happens, Ellen turns out to be incredibly demanding and bossy, forcing Chris to give her a shoulder massage and later yelling at him over chocolate sauce on her ice cream sundae.
Boy, you're tougher than a doggy dominatrix.
Fed up, Chris finally stands up for himself, telling Ellen that he thought she would be different, but she is actually just a jerk like everyone else.
I used to hear that people with Down syndrome were different than the rest of us, but you're not. You're just a bunch of ass like everyone else.
She promptly kicks him out of her house. On the surface, Chris realizing that people with mental disabilities can be just as flawed as anyone else is actually a surprisingly progressive take for the show. But this is Family Guy, so they couldn't just leave it at that.
You made a vow that you were gonna ask Ellen out, and you did. That took courage, my friend. Especially for a poor, timid sap like you. I'm proud of you!
The massive controversy stems from a single line where Ellen mentions that her mother is the former governor of Alaska. This was a direct, highly personal jab at Sarah Palin, who has a son with Down syndrome. Coming in at number 2 on our list of the absolute worst, most heavily criticized episodes is Season 12, Episode 14, Fresh Hair. What happens when Peter realizes his teenage son is going to inherit a massive billion-dollar fortune? Well, he decides the most logical solution is to legally divorce his wife and attempt to marry his own child. Let's get into this deeply uncomfortable storyline. The wildly inappropriate plot kicks off when Chris simply tries to spend some quality father-son time with Peter. But true to form, Peter completely brushes him off, even lying about a fake fishing trip just to avoid hanging out with his own kid.
Peter, it might help Chris to be able to spend some time with his father.
Well, what's in it for old Pete?
He's your son. Don't you want someone to bond with?
Feeling rejected, Chris ends up spending time with Lois's incredibly wealthy father, Carter.
You know, Chris, you've got a grandpa who could use your help right now. I'm sure he'd enjoy spending time with you.
The two actually form a surprisingly wholesome bond, and when Carter tries to pay Chris for his time, Chris politely refuses.
But Grandpa, I don't even want the money.
See? This is exactly why you should get it. So refreshing.
This genuine act of kindness impresses Carter so much that he immediately names Chris the sole heir to his massive fortune.
I can't believe your dad's giving all his cash to Chris.
I know it's strange, but in the end, it's his money, so who really cares?
Naturally, Peter is absolutely furious that he isn't getting the cash, so he instantly tries to suck up to his son.
What are you doing? What's going on?
He tries dressing like Chris and even accidentally attacks a deaf student thinking it was Chris's school bully, but nothing seems to win Chris over.
Hey, you guys.
Jeez, Peter, you look exhausted.
I am. I've been busting my for the last week trying to suck up to Chris.
This is where the episode takes a massive dive into highly questionable and deeply uncomfortable territory. Desperate to get his hands on the inheritance, Peter actually gets down on one knee and proposes to Chris, claiming that a man can legally marry any other man in Vermont.
Chris Griffin, will you marry me?
Knowing exactly what Peter is up to, Chris shockingly agrees, but only because it's the one way he can finally get his dad to spend time with him.
I will marry you, Dad.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
Peter literally divorces Lois and travels to Vermont to exchange vows with his teenage son. Thankfully, Lois and the rest of the family bust through the doors to crash the deeply wrong ceremony before it becomes official.
Peter, several people have called the police about a man marrying his son. It's not normal.
Chris confesses that he just wanted a real relationship with his father, and Peter briefly realizes he was in the wrong.
I'm sorry, Chris, but you know what? I'm gonna make it up to you, starting right now. Chris Griffin, will you be my son?
But taking your own child to another state under false pretenses just to marry them for cash easily cements this as one of the most widely hated, deeply uncomfortable episodes in the show's history.
Well, we should probably get going. I think this adventure is over. Interestingly, however, I did run into Chris again.
Coming in at number 3 on our list of the absolute worst, most heavily criticized episodes is Season 10, Episode 2, Seahorse Seashell Party. What happens when the ultimate family punching bag finally stands up for herself and destroys her abusers? Well, the writers decide to completely undo her character growth and force her to apologize for it. Let's get into this incredibly depressing storyline. The disaster kicks off when a massive, violent hurricane hits Quahog, completely knocking out the cable and leaving the Griffin family trapped inside the house together.
The wind must have knocked the satellite dish loose.
Oh, crap, and I was gonna watch G.I. Jose.
Bored out of their minds, Peter tries to pass the time by singing the opening chase music from Indiana Jones for an entire, uninterrupted minute. Meg finally snaps and tells him to stop because it's wildly annoying. Naturally, Chris and Lois immediately jump to Peter's defense and start relentlessly bullying Meg.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
But this time, Meg doesn't just take it. She unleashes years of pent-up anger and completely tears into her family.
You're my brother. You're supposed to be on my side, and you're such a to me.
How am I a
Oh, you want the full story?
She starts with Lois, destroying her for constantly targeting Meg's shortcomings and calling out her hypocritical past as a shoplifter and a deeply flawed mother.
Oh, I see. Is this coming from my role model mother? The shoplifter, the addict, the porn star?
Then, she turns her sights on Peter, completely obliterating him by calling him an embarrassment.
You have no education. You just do whatever reckless thing you want to do, whenever you want to do it, without regard for anyone else.
A waste of a man, and stating that he belongs in jail for the terrible things he's done. Meg's brutal honesty completely shatters the family's dynamic.
Have either of you guys been listening to me? Do you both just have your heads up your asses?
Lois bursts into tears, Peter runs upstairs crying, and the rest of the family instantly turns on each other, tearing themselves apart. Now this could have been a massive turning point for the show.
You know, that was pretty cool the way you finally stood up to everybody.
I don't know, Brian.
But instead of letting the family learn a lesson and treat Meg better, the writers force Meg into a tragic realization. Meg talks to Brian and realizes that her horrible role in the family is to act as a lightning rod.
I mean, it's not ideal, but it's an important piece that maybe it's just my lot in life to provide.
She believes that if she doesn't absorb all of their terrible dysfunction, the family won't survive. So in an incredibly depressing twist, Meg walks back upstairs and completely apologizes to everyone, taking the blame for everything just to keep them happy.
Dad, I'm so sorry that I made you feel this way. You don't deserve it.
Having a teenage girl realize she simply has to accept her role as a victim of constant emotional abuse just to keep her toxic family together sends an absolutely terrible message, easily securing this episode a top spot on our worst list. Wrapping up our list of the absolute worst, most poorly aged Family Guy episodes is Season 7, Episode 8, Family Gay. What happens when Peter makes a terrible purchase and racks up a massive amount of debt? Well, he volunteers for a highly questionable medical trial, gets injected with a gay gene, and relies on a parade of dated stereotypes. Let's break down this incredibly controversial finale. The disaster begins with a simple chore. Peter is sent to the store to go grocery shopping. But in classic Peter fashion, he returns home 6 hours later with absolutely no food, but instead brings home a brain-damaged horse.
You bought a horse? Why the I didn't even give you that much money.
That's what I thought, Lois.
The horse is an absolute nightmare, loudly ruining the house and completely destroying the living room carpet.
You know what? I don't want him to feel self-conscious. Everybody pee.
Peter,
Everybody pee now.
To try and make some money off the animal, Peter decides to enter the horse into a local race.
We are going to get a great view of the track from up here. This is going to be a great race. Hey, what are you doing? Get down there.
Naturally, the brain-damaged horse runs directly into the grandstands.
Fellas, this race ain't over yet.
My baby's dead!
It's over.
Causing $100,000 in property damage before immediately suffering a fatal heart attack. Desperate to pay off his newly acquired, crushing debt, Peter signs up to be a test subject for medical science.
And it says they'll pay handsomely. This is perfect. Now I won't have to take that job as Matt Damon's neck.
He agrees to be injected with an experimental gay gene. Almost immediately, Peter's entire personality shifts into a series of incredibly dated stereotypes.
Peter, are you gay?
Guilty!
He becomes obsessed with shopping, baking, and complimenting Lois's outfits. At first, Lois actually loves the new attentive version of her husband, until the lights go down and Peter completely rejects her romantic advances.
Come on, sweetie, let's have some fun.
Lois, I'm gay.
Things reach a breaking point when Peter literally leaves his wife to move in with his new soulmate, a man named Scott.
I'm sorry, Lois. I can't deny who I am any longer. I am Peter Griffin, homosexual, and that's how I'm gonna live my life.
Seeing how depressed Lois is, Brian and Stewie take matters into their own hands and actually kidnap Peter, tossing him into a highly controversial straight camp that specializes in conversion therapy.
Where am I?
This is straight camp, Peter. I'm sorry, but I'm doing this for Lois. By the time you get out of here, you're gonna be back to your old self again.
Lois eventually realizes that trying to force Peter to change is wrong, and she pulls him out of the camp so he can live his life however he wants.
I mean, a person's sexual identity is no more a choice than the color of his skin. This is who you are. I can't change you.
Peter happily returns to Scott, only to find that Scott has organized a massive, highly inappropriate 11-way party for him.
I have a welcome home surprise for you. You guys!
But in a wild stroke of luck, the experimental gene completely wears off right in the middle of the action. Completely traumatized, Peter sprints back home to Lois and vows to never speak of the events again. Relying so heavily on tired stereotypes and highly offensive jokes caused a massive uproar, leading the Parents' Television Council to file formal indecency complaints against the network. Between the animal abuse, the offensive tropes, and the conversion camp jokes, this episode easily secures the final spot on our worst list.